Dr. Wandali. Mike couldn't join us today. Um, you know, I thought it would be fun to share with our audience how we got our foothold into the natural health and wellness scene. And you know what? It started for both of us quite a long time ago when through chiropractic. So, Wandali, would you like me to go first and talk about my chiropractic story?
Go for it.
All right. So, um, I was about 11, 12 years old, and it was in March, and it was cold and freezing, and we were at one of my little league games, and my mother was sitting in those hard aluminum stands, and she was watching me play. And I was a terrible baseball player, but she was complaining, sitting, moving, complaining about her back pain, and the lady next to her said, "You know what? You should go see my chiropractor. I work for him. He's great. He'll really help you." And my mother took that action step and went to go see this chiropractor. And she went to the chiropractor, Dr. Elliott, if you're listening. And he told her the real, true story of chiropractic, that healing comes from above, down, inside out, that your nervous system controls and coordinates your entire health and wellness scene. And he took x-rays, examined her, gave her a first adjustment. And that really resonated with my mother, so much to the point where she decided to bring in me, my brother, and my father and my sister over time. And I can never, I'll never forget that first time walking down that hallway that still exists, that I still go to about once a week, hopping on that table, turning my head to the left and right, getting my first adjustment, hopping off and looking up and saying to my mom, saying, "Wow, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life." And we walked down, we left, and we had a great day. And prior to that, um, I was a relatively sick kid. I had strep throat, chronic ear infections many, many, many times a year. And I got really familiar with that pink bubblegum tasting amoxicillin. And, I was not thriving, but I wasn't a really healthy, vibrant kid, so to speak. And it took about 3, 4 months to realize after that first adjustment that I wasn't getting sick anymore. I wasn't getting the strep throat, wasn't getting the ear infections. And, 30 whatever years later, I think I've taken one antibiotic since. Haven't had strep throat, haven't had an ear infection, and it totally chiropractic totally changed my total life health picture. And you just kind of fast forward in increments. I did my first term paper on chiropractic. I was seeing the chiropractor all the way through high school. Went to Montclair State University, knowing I wanted to be a chiropractor. Met my wife there. She got a teaching English degree. I got my biology degree at Montclair State. And then we both went to chiropractic school, Life University in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, and maybe now the largest chiropractic school. Lots of people right outside Atlanta, really fun, a huge school, busy, hopping. And we had a great time there. I spent 4 years there. We were engaged at that point. My wife and I, Carrie, we moved back to New Jersey. We could have stayed, but my personal job opportunities were in New Jersey. And I started working for that same chiropractor that gave me my first adjustment and quickly moved me into an office in Bayonne. And for 3 years, I worked as an associate slash ownership, partial ownership of this office. Got really, 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 really busy. At the same time, at a coffee shop in Bayonne, I met our partner, Dr. Mike, and we started talking on usually 2 to 3 times a week for a cup of coffee. After 5 years, I bought my partners out, moved into Dr. Mike's building, and Dr. Mike and I have been practicing in the same building chiropractically now for 15 years. And if you nestle in there, about 10 years ago, we got the opportunity to join what was called the UAC and still is called the UAC's Ultimate Achievers Club. And we got to meet a bunch of chiropractors from all over the world. And we started chatting, and we got put into an accountability group. And that accountability group was me, you, Mike, your husband, I believe, and a few other people. And we've been chatting on the phone every Tuesday morning at 8:30 for that length of time. In that time frame, we also started Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and our bread and butter still, day in and day out, is chiropractic. And I'm moving into my 20th year as a chiropractor, and I believe 5 years as a health educator with Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. So that's my chiropractic story in a nutshell. Little add-ins there. Um, 5 years into practice, my highest, uh, busiest time in my career, highest in my professional heights. At that same time, my mother got diagnosed with fourth stage colon cancer. The person that gave me my direction, that brought me to the chiropractor, and she died very quickly, 30 days from diagnosis to death. And at that point, I decided to up my game a little bit more. And prior to that, I was really just chiropractic, chiropractic, chiropractic. Wasn't really talking about all the other lifestyle choices, that chiropractic lifestyle or that Beyond Your Wildest Dreams lifestyle that we talk about. And at that point, that kind of signifies the point at where I made a shift. And along with chiropractic, I began talking much more about nutrition, exercise, and all the other things that come along with being a healthy individual. And that's my first 20 years uh, in, in 6 minutes and 13 seconds. And and I'm wondering if I can share my next 20 years in 6 minutes and 13 seconds, 20 years from now.
Yeah, time flies, doesn't it? So actually, my story is not quite the same as yours, but it's not that different either. I find in talking to most chiropractors, either they had a personal experience that started them with chiropractic. You know, they had something either as an athlete or a child or an adult that, you know, sidelined them and they saw a chiropractor and wow, and then they became a chiropractor. Or they had something in their immediate family, like a parent. And I would say probably my first exposure to chiropractic was like yours. My dad had a bad back, did the 3 months lying in bed, did the this, did the that. And at that time, you know, this we're talking about, you know, late 70s, early 80s, probably early 80s kind of time. Um, Chiropractic was weird. You know, it was just not at all common for people to go to a chiropractor. And in the place where I lived, which is fairly rural, you'd have to drive an hour plus to the chiropractor. So it was, you know, there were a couple of them. Interestingly enough, one was female, which, you know, at that time, there still wasn't as high a percentage of female healthcare practitioners in doctor roles as there are now. So, you know, that was kind of cool too. But he went, had good success. My dad's a fisherman, so obviously working a physical job, it's important to be able to move and lift and do things. And so I really think that was a pivotal point for his career in terms of being able to continue to support a family and do all the things that you need to do when you have kids. Um, and I was attracted to the idea of helping people actually be better. In my mind, you know, I grew up quite a normal, you know, you take pills for this or you do whatever for that. And it was like, okay, but there's something more behind that. You know, yes, it's nice to feel better and you know, you can take that painkiller and yes, that makes you temporarily feel better, but the problem wasn't addressed. And my natural questioning of why just continually kind of bubbled up in there. And chiropractic was one of the first exposures I had to people who had an answer to the why question. You know, why does this keep happening? Why do people get sick? Why do people have pain? Why do people lose their ability to function in certain ways? And looking at the nervous system and understanding what's underlying the entire function of the body made so much sense to me, and it just sort of clicked. So off I went to university to do my undergraduate degree in biology as well, and met my husband there, who we were introduced because we were two people in a school of 2,500 or so that were both going to be chiropractors. And it turns out his dad had been a chiropractor. He practiced for 60 plus years. He just retired a couple years ago. So he had, you know, a heavy background in chiropractic. And we, you know, had that in common, I guess, to kind of meet, but obviously extended to more than that. I did an honors biology degree, so I had to do research, and you know, my faculty advisor was great, and you know, did a tremendous amount of stuff. And like all, I think, students who do well in school, um, everybody asks you, you know, are you going to be a doctor? You know, like if you're in science and you get good marks, that's sort of the common assumption, is that you're going to go on and be a doctor. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm gonna go to chiropractic college. And I remember the people being just somewhat taken aback that I would waste my time doing something like that when you could go to medical school and you'd have no trouble getting in. So it wasn't a plan B to be a chiropractor. It was plan A all along. So fast forward a few years, I went to school in Toronto at Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College. My husband was a year ahead of me. We were not married at the time. And then when we graduated, he worked for some other clinics for a year. I finished school and we moved back here to the Maritimes. So we live in Nova Scotia in Canada. And, that was 1994 that I opened up my practice. So we're a little over 25 years now, almost 26 years. And sadly, I was the first female chiropractor to come here to Halifax, not to Nova Scotia,
Wow.
here to the city. There were only a few chiropractors, a handful, 5 or 6, for a city of, probably 400,000 people at that time. And there were no females. So I will still remember the very first day I was in practice. You've got no patience. You have an office, you hung out a sign, you put an ad in the paper, and there you are. And someone called and she came in and she had been waiting for 7 years. She wanted to see a chiropractor and she did not want to go to a male doctor. So it was like, okay, there is a place for me here, and there's some good we can do. And it's been 25 years ever since. I practiced full time by myself for those first 5 years. And then when my kids were born, I left that practice to another chiropractor and moved into my husband's practice so I could be part-time, whatever that means. So I could work 2 jobs, mommy and chiropractor. Really the case. And and I'm still there. So
Right.
yeah, but like started really with the core chiropractic, and as you continue, the great thing about healthcare and chiropractic specifically is there's constantly new information and new research and new opportunities to be exposed to ideas, and branching into sort of, okay, you've got your nervous system, and then what can we do to feed that nervous system? Chiropractic, we're going to help it flow better. We're going to help your body work better. We're going to help everything move better. We're going to help everything function with more vitality. But what else do you need? Obviously, you need water, and you need clean air, and you need good food, and all of the chemical components that go in to make up how your body works. So that's sort of where branching out into nutrition and starting to suggest things to people, and then they'd come back and have spent money on absolute crap that was in the stores. You'd send them to buy a calcium supplement and they come back with something that's basically chalk. And that's not really what you intended for them. And they're not going to get the health benefits that you had suggested they would, and they've wasted 30, 40, $50 on something that isn't going to pay them back in dividends. So that's kind of where we've branched out into educating people about how to choose those things better, how to make better choices, and now even into making our own supplements, because if we're going to suggest something, like, I just feel strongly that we want to be able to back it up, that we know it works. So that's my story. I don't know how long that took. I think longer than you.
A little bit, but that's good. That's good. I think the first time I heard that.
Really?
That's great. And your story is one of the most powerful things you own. So I hope that by listening to our stories, you get to start, maybe even pen to paper, start writing down your story. It's that important. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave any comments, questions, ideas, thoughts. Wandalee, anything to add or finish?
Well, that's actually one of my favorite things to read on Facebook, and I'm friends with a lot of chiropractors on Facebook, and I love to read the comments when patients comment about their story, when they talk about what happened to them or to their child or to their spouse or to their parent or whoever when they saw the chiropractor. So if you've got an awesome chiropractic story and you don't mind sharing, please leave those in the comments, because that's what kind of gets us up and excited every single morning to see those miracles, and hearing about them is the second best thing.
Sure is. Thank you, and be awesome and never unawesome.
Bye-bye.